So just okay. Yes, I will. Okay. All right. This turned out to be a little bit more tricky. I think we had more time to figure out. That's why we got a little bit over-engineered. But I can tell you, this is a discussion. This is a debate that I believe Bob now has turned into a discussion. That we wanted to host for quite some time. Over the holidays, in the summer break, we had an intern who interviewed each of them individually. So we'll have a chance to cross-correlate that what they have agreed on and what they don't. But I really welcome my two good friends to battle it out and probably agree on most things, as they have probably done in the backdrop of this discussion about blockchain and crypto, application of blockchain in crypto, the different legal challenges around that, and the reason I premise this is because Bob has worked tirelessly in the last year and a half, 2 years into putting the light on the adverse implications of cryptocurrency, and somehow a little bit more sensationally with his books and with his talks everywhere. And I know, as equal with probably as much energy, Peter has worked to enlighten people on the application of blockchain. And between our close friends here and another friend that we don't have in this conversation yet, but definitely in the back end, we've been talking is Lee Brecher, and Peter and Lee have been working together on the Texas Blockchain Council. Texas has been on the forefront of blockchain revolution, so to speak, both legislatively as well as administrative policy side. There is a lot of debate on the energy impact as well as the impact on the economy, right? Bringing jobs to Texas, which has been the moot point. But overall, I think I'll not give away any of the points that Peter and Bob are going to talk and discuss about. But I introduce both of them to to this stage and the arena. Again, Bob, welcome. Glad to be here with you and having you here. And Peter, wish you.
You just cut out. I can't hear you. The mic shows that it's mute. Your mic shows that it's muted on your end. I can't hear anything, no. I can't hear anything. Are you muted? Bob, you look like you're muted. It shows that you're muted.
Okay, now.
Right,
Can
thank
you hear
you.
me now?
Yes, sorry about that.
Now I can't hear Peter, and there's an extra echo. Peter?
I blame that on being in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Crypto criminals have moved me up here for the day. So, hey, Bob, how good to see you.
Good to see you too, Peter. I'll just start it off here with an explanation of the basic distinction between cryptocurrency and blockchain. Bitcoin is the major cryptocurrency. It uses blockchain, but it's not blockchain. There's been a lot of purposeful confusion in the marketplace because people promoting Bitcoin have said blockchain is the future, Bitcoin uses blockchain, therefore Bitcoin is the future. If you think about that, the logic doesn't make sense. And the logic of all the marketing of Bitcoin doesn't make sense. I target Bitcoin in my books because Bitcoin is the foundation of the digital asset empire. There's some reality in digital assets, but if we eliminate the speculative nature of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin open Ponzi scheme will then see the reality of what digital assets are really worth. Peter.
Well, I guess we're not going to debate much because I kind of agree with most of what you said, except that I think that there is an advantage in the big scheme of things dealing with blockchain as a tool, theoretically as an immutable database, distributed database. But the reality, and this is something you and I have already talked about, and that is the part that scares me to death is it's all open source. So why would I trust an open source platform? And that is what it's all built on. So that's kind of a scary proposition. And then I think the other part that goes along with it, and I agree with you, is last I checked, there are over 10,000 different cryptocurrencies. And of those, most of them are scams, and maybe only 2 or 3 have any value, which I think is kind of an illusion in the marketplace.
Absolutely, Peter. I think the SEC is going to be cracking down on almost all those securities like cryptocurrencies very soon. And I agree with you on the cybersecurity component of open source. But in addition, and the main argument I make at cybersecurity conferences like this about Bitcoin is that the existence of Bitcoin enables and facilitates and incentivizes ransomware. If there was no Bitcoin, the incidence of ransomware, the incentive for attackers to use ransomware would be greatly diminished. We'd have a fraction of the ransomware attacks that we have today.
Oh, I'm going to disagree with that. I think the cyber criminals, and we all know this, what they did last week, they're not going to do this week, and they're not going to do next week. So part of it is Bitcoin is a big target, and it's great right now, but that doesn't mean that that ransomware as a service is not going to change models within a few days. But it is a terrible problem, obviously, and I think we have to be very concerned about it. It's not going away. It's just getting more complicated.
I agree. And now turning to the technology itself, Peter, where I think we may have a disagreement is on blockchain itself and digital assets itself. And what I'm going to quote from here is a letter sent by 1,500 technologists to Congress on June 1st. 3 are key cybersecurity professionals, which many of you may have heard of: Grady Booch, George Stoffley, and Nicholas Weaver, and also Bruce Schneier. He's probably the most famous writer of them all. The letter is available online, and you can see the other signatories on concerned.tech. That's concerned with an ed.tech. So just quickly, I'm going to read this. We strongly disagree with the narrative peddled by those with a financial stake in the crypto asset industry that these technologies represent a positive financial innovation and are in any way suited to solving the financial problems facing ordinary Americans. Append-only digital ledgers, blockchain, are not a new innovation. They have been known and used since 1980 for rather limited functions. This technology has been a solution in search of a problem and now has latched on to concepts such as financial inclusion and data transparency to justify its existence, despite far better solutions already in use. Blockchain technologies facilitate few, if any, real economy uses. The catastrophes and externalities related to blockchain technology and crypto asset investments are neither isolated nor are they the growing pains of a nascent technology. They are the inevitable outcomes of a technology that is not built for purpose and will remain forever unsuitable as a foundation for large-scale economic activity.
All right. Well, I can disagree with a bunch of that. Let's start here. I don't trust anybody in Washington to know what they're talking about. So you got to think, who's the audience there? The members of Congress?
Yes.
It's very, and it's confusing to them. The other part about this that I think is significant that you bring up is that nobody knows for sure this number, but there are estimates that there are 1.4 billion people on Earth that do not have access to banks. And if that indeed, whether that number is actually correct or not, in many countries around the world, there are not banks. So as an alternative to banking systems in many countries, the whole concept of cryptocurrency may be a terrific solution. It doesn't mean that it's cyber protected, but it just means by which economic economies can go forward. And I think that is a problem around the world. That's different than maybe the United States, which is the point I think that you're making. The U.S. relying on it is a problem. But as you point out, as I think Val pointed out in the introduction, I represent a group called the Texas Blockchain Council, and we got the legislature to create a 10-person work group to give advice about blockchain. And some of the issues that came out or that come out to that in this past year, including DAOs, digital identity, power, energy. There are a lot of things involved in this, and cyber is right in the middle of all of these things.
Peter, it's that argument of the crypto community of banking the unbanked that concerns me the most. If those behind the crypto asset industry, the cryptocurrency industry, if the crypto enthusiasts really cared about banking the unbanked, they would be backing solutions that actually work today to expand them. They would be backing solutions that are actually used in places such as Africa, throughout Africa, but need to be expanded using technology such as M-Pesa. M-Pesa works and it improves people's lives. Those investing in crypto should be investing in that. That would actually help people's lives, as opposed to furthering a Ponzi scheme, which is effectively what cryptocurrency is. There has been an experiment in El Salvador over the last year. The president of El Salvador made Bitcoin forced tender, meaning it was mandatory. Everyone in El Salvador had to accept Bitcoin for the last year. If somebody offered it to them, any individual or business needed to accept Bitcoin. Every individual in El Salvador was given a Bitcoin wallet and was given $30 of Bitcoin. Almost everyone simply converted that Bitcoin into US dollars. Bitcoin is virtually unused today, and the fundamental basis upon which the president convinced his legislature to pass this law was that the truth, 1/3 of the El Salvador economy, of the GDP, is from remittances from expats to the country. He argued that the Western unions of the world charge too much and that Bitcoin would reduce those fees. Today, less than 1% of foreign remittances a year later are in Bitcoin. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency has nothing to do with banking the unbanked.
Well, from a different angle, the part that I find disturbing, and I agree with you, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. The part that I find kind of disturbing, that in looking at this, and I'm not trying to be political in any way, but the fact that the Russian government has also decided that they would accept Bitcoin gives that same kind of political message. That is this all being done to encourage more war in the Ukraine or other countries around the world? And it's kind of a scam in that regard.
Yes, Peter. It is concerning what adversaries are doing with Bitcoin. Iran is evading sanctions by US sanctions by converting their oil into Bitcoin that they can use outside the country. They're giving cheap oil to Bitcoin miners in the country. The miners then are forced to sell their Bitcoin to the central bank of Iran, which then uses those currencies externally to buy goods and services for Iran. The central bank of Iran is sanctioned by the United States. But even worse, North Korea is behind many of the ransomware attacks, and it is using the proceeds of those ransomware attacks that they receive in Bitcoin to fund its atomic bomb program. A significant amount of their hard currency foreign reserves is in the form of Bitcoin.
Well, you're talking about currencies only, and I would like to broaden this discussion somewhat about blockchain. I know you and I have discussed this, and there are, theoretically anyway, there are reasons that international shipping companies like Maersk has decided to use IBM Watson to help in their blockchain to manage it. Good PR for IBM. Congratulations. They are the greatest marketing company around, one of them. But the reality is, if Maersk can manage every single shipping container around the world so that it is controlled in a blockchain that they know it's safe and secure, that may help. Starbucks tracks every single coffee bean that they purchase and is grown around the world. Now, the reality, of course, is ships in the shipping industry, containers fall off ships all the time. But I wonder, down deep, does that really make any sense? Does Merck even realize that? Is the blockchain reliable as a source to prove that they lost containers on a ship because of turbulent seas?
Very good point. With any system, database technology, whether it's centralized or decentralized, what matters is the validity of the information that's going in. And whether it's blockchain or traditional technology, if the validity of the information, if garbage in, garbage out. My big skepticism regarding blockchain technologies, moving on from Bitcoin, is are they any better than the use of existing technologies? What I find is that people are excited about blockchain because of Bitcoin, and that they are trying to take a technology and make it fit into, create a solution without, first of all, finding out what is the problem. Is there a problem? What is that problem? Can traditional technologies that we're all familiar with and know how to use, can traditional technologies solve that problem? If not, then perhaps let's explore some new technologies, including blockchain technologies. That should be the process.
Well, and an example that I think applies that everyone in the room knows and understands this, the ERP world, for instance, SAP is very interested in expanding their databases to be all blockchain so they can lock everything down. But my sense is the reason they're doing that is because they want to force all of the SAP users around the world to use their cloud solution, and then they have complete control over all of the data in the world, which I don't think I like personally.
Indeed. And similarly, in the crypto world, the way I see it is that about 10,000 people own about half the Bitcoin. In the Ethereum world, it's even more concentrated. Even fewer people own half the Ethereum. The problem for them is it's so concentrated, they can't dump it on the market without crashing the price. So instead, what they're trying to do is stimulate the demand in the entire crypto sphere. So that's why you see these NFT arguments, and that's why you see all these other crypto projects, because it's all connected together. That's why you have 10,000 cryptocurrencies, because they all trade on exchanges like Coinbase and other exchanges around the world. And it's a way to increase demand for Bitcoin and Ethereum. So you have these Bitcoin, large holders of Bitcoin, large holders of Ethereum, contributing and encouraging such programs to stimulate the amount of real dollars that come in the system and then can be distributed to the whales so they can exit.
Well, in another similar vein, I know many people in the room did as I did and got a degree in business in undergraduate school. And when I was a student at the University of Texas in the business school, I remember taking an advanced economics course. And the book we read indicated that 12 people on earth decide everything that happens on Wall Street, and everyone else is just kind of gambling along about what those 12 people are going to do. Doesn't sound like a whole lot different with your argument in Bitcoin and Ethereum. I mean, that's so who do you trust? Do you trust that? Not much.
Indeed. And people take a look at the price of Bitcoin or Ethereum, and then the market price, and they think it's a real price. It's not a real price. It's a manipulated price, because imagine if Bitcoin was a stock on the stock market where the insiders, the major holders of that stock, did not need to disclose their trades. That's the situation with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the other cryptocurrencies. Those who are buying, the retail customers who are buying into a manipulated marketplace that is not regulated. What Bitcoin is, very simply put, is it's the world's largest unlicensed gambling casino. Bitcoin has all the excitement of gambling with the fake profits of a Ponzi scheme and the viral marketing of a pyramid scheme.
And the vulnerability of cyber criminals that can get in and steal these Bitcoins and Ethereum dollars. And they do that all the time. There are headlines. I think we see headlines every week of a huge break-in at one of the online Bitcoin banking operations or whatever it may be. Then the other thing, another complication, you brought up NFTs before. That whole world is dependent on DAOs. And the whole concept of the DAO is that it's an organization that is not run by anybody, and people vote and they don't even know how that's going to turn out. And then at the end of the day, do they pay taxes on it? Does anybody know who made money on it? No. So that's all part of the NFT marketplace that you already brought up.
Absolutely. I agree 100%, Peter. Incidentally, I can ask you this question. Have you ever had to consider the question of these DAOs are unincorporated organizations? I would argue that each holder of a voting stake in the DAO is legally a partner and jointly and severally liable for the actions of the DAO. Would you agree? I'm putting you on the spot here, Peter.
No, that's fine. I'm going to disagree with that because there's really only one state law that addresses the DAO community, and that's Wyoming, and it's not all that great to begin with. My work group from blockchain for the state of Texas, we're going to make a recommendation to the legislature about having to set up DAOs. And you know what it is? It's around the LLC. It's a form of LLC. And so from that standpoint, I agree with you completely. It's like, who is it? And are the members public? And I would think from the standpoint of internal revenue, they would want to know who that is so that they can figure out who has to pay taxes.
Indeed. And I think taxes are a big part of this. The major users of Bitcoin are criminals, human traffickers, drug traffickers, tax evaders. The IRS is very concerned about that, but they know how to trace the Bitcoin, very sophisticated, not just ransomware, but sanctions evasion. So tax is a big driver in all of this. My argument is that Bitcoin really is gambling. And I argue to the IRS that they should be taxing Bitcoin trades and similar crypto trades as if it was gambling, no different from how anybody would gamble in Vegas. It should not be treated as property, which they treat it today. So if somebody has losses in crypto, it should be just like losses in gambling. You can only write off your losses to the extent of your gambling profits. You should only be able to write off your crypto losses to the extent of your crypto gains.
And so you're only presupposing that the United States government, our legislature, will be capable of figuring out how to solve this problem. And then the agencies that are responsible for enforcing them will have the faintest idea. And then let me change gears for 1 second here. I'm a trial lawyer. I don't know a judge anywhere that would understand what you and I've been talking about for the past 20 minutes.
I agree entirely. In fact, I spent 3 hours with a senior regulatory official in New York whose job it is to regulate crypto. I spent 3 hours with them back and forth on one very simple issue. What is Bitcoin mining? At the end of it, he understood, but it took 3 hours. These are the problems that we face. We need to educate our regulators about what this new industry is, or else it's going to continue to be a free-for-all. Finally, it's taken years, but I think the SEC is on the verge of understanding what the vast majority of the existing cryptocurrencies are that are traded. They are securities. Peter?
No, you know what? I'm glad you made that point because a very good friend of mine is a senator for the state of Texas named Royce West. And I went and spent half a day with him doing blockchain 101 and cryptocurrency. And by the end of the day, I think he understood it. But that doesn't mean that everyone who's in the legislature and a decision maker in Austin or another state capital or the US government is going to do it. But whatever laws they come up with to challenge them, there's going to be a lawsuit.
Yes.
And there's got to be something in plain, simple English where a judge and a jury can understand what this stuff is. And I am very concerned it's going to take a long time before the courts can figure out how this all applies.
Peter, thank you so much. It's as if I paid you to set me up. What the judges need to read and the regulators need to read is my book, The Coin Man. I've been speaking about the Coin Man. I published it earlier this year. I've been speaking all around the world to regulators and prosecutors, attorneys general, investment conferences, money laundering conferences. And so the Coin Man, you can see the I is very hard to read. So it spells something else. And that's what I think the promoters of Bitcoin are, as I think they're con men. So this book isn't available here for free for everyone. However, once people read this book, a lot of people ask me, Bob, okay, I learned a lot about economics and regulation, financing, banking, law, but tell me really, what's the true value of Bitcoin? So I wrote this book here under my pseudonym, Satoshi Nakamoto. I wrote this book. It's called The True Value of Bitcoin Revealed. And if you do not yet have a copy of it, I've got a couple copies left. I'll give you signed copies. It's a limited edition printing of 21 million.
And is it available on a blockchain version as well?
Yes, there is an NFC version. Thanks, Peter. I see that I'm getting the yank here. So any final words after I plug my book? It's available on Amazon, by the way, both books. Go ahead.
Well, listen, Bob, it's been great to have this opportunity to chat with you today. And I once again thank the Cyber Future Foundation for allowing us to have this conversation because this is really critical. And as I say, given where we are in the future, this is so technology dependent. And even though the original patent that got this going was issued in 1982, some 40 years later, it has just changed the planet. Seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Val.
Thank you, Val.
Everyone.